Compliance Life details the journey to and in the role of a Chief Compliance Officer. How does one come to sit in the CCO chair? What are some of the skills a CCO needs to successfully navigate the compliance waters in any company? What are some of the top challenges CCOs have faced, and how did they meet them? These questions and many others will be explored in this new podcast series. The Compliance Life is hosted by Tom Fox, and each month he'll present the story of one CCO through 4 episodes. The Compliance Life is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
This is Tom Fox, and welcome to the December edition of the Compliance Life. In this month's edition, I visit with Kim Yapchai. Kim is the Chief Compliance and Chief Sustainability Officer at Tenneco. She's had a very distinguished career in compliance, but it didn't start out in compliance. We explore her undergraduate degree in economics and how that led to her going to law school, but becoming a business person with a law degree. We talk about her path to the CCO chair as an in-house counsel and what she learned as a business lawyer and was able to apply that in compliance in a preventative law perspective. We consider her roles at Whirlpool and Tenneco as Chief Compliance Officers, some of the challenges she's faced, and some of the successes she's had at both corporations. We conclude with her new role, in addition to being Chief Compliance Officer at Tenneco, as the Chief Sustainability Officer, and how that role helps her to have a broader risk management portfolio and use risk in a strategic way, both from the compliance perspective and the sustainability perspective. It's a fascinating series of interviews over the month of December. I know you will enjoy them all. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again with Kim Yapchai, and we are continuing to talk about her journey in the compliance life. So, Kim, first of all, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Happy to be here.
Kim, you mentioned in our prior episode you took an associate or assistant general counsel position, and that really had you focus for the first time on compliance directly. I was wondering if you could maybe talk about your path to the CCO chair and what positions you had and what you learned in those positions.
Well, Tom, that's a good question. I would say, first of all, you mentioned path as if this was intentional or I had a design in mind. And actually, it was quite the opposite. When I went to law school, there wasn't a lot of talk about chief compliance officers, and I'm, older than some of us around, and it was before SOX, right? Before the whole career of compliance had more fully developed into what it is today. So it was really quite by accident. There was the recession in 08 and 09, and we had to cut about half of our legal staff at the time. And the whole company had to cut heads in order to survive. They were tough times. And at that time, our chief compliance officer left, and our GC was reassigning roles. And he said, "Here, Kim, I want you to do compliance." And I said, "Well, I'd really rather have this other part over here, this other job." And he said, "Okay, here, Kim, I want you to do compliance." And I thought, maybe he didn't hear me. I really want to do this other part over here. And he said, "Kim," and then I said, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" Right? And decided I need to be grateful to have a job and take what he gave me. That GC happened to have a genius level IQ. So I'm not sure whether he just got lucky or he saw something in me and saw that I'd be really good at this job.
So we have to stop here to acknowledge in the 1 year that I've done this podcast, no one, and I repeat, no one has used an Animal House reference. So that is a very, very dear movie to my heart as a frat rat from the 70s. Classic.
Yes.
So after you were happy to take another, what were your kind of first thoughts around compliance? Was it different? Was it new, or just really an extension of many of the things you had done as a business person, helping out from the legal angle?
Yeah, I'll be honest, Tom. Again, I was not excited about it. And I was like, I've got to do this. Because as a employee, all I thought of compliance was those are those horrible people that launch all those courses that I have to click through, right? And and so first thing I said to myself is, I am not going to run a program like that. I am going to change this program and make it way better and take the groan out of compliance. So that's really what I set out doing. And I think it made me better at it because I had the audience in mind, right? I didn't want to put people through that. I didn't want them to think of me as that groan. And so, fast forward through that, I do agree with you, and I didn't realize it at that point. It was a natural extension of why I became a in-house counsel in the first place, right? Again, to practice proactive or preventative law and help people avoid problems and make informed decisions and, stay within the guardrails, stay within the bounds of the law.
Did you have the type of relationship with the business unit where they already knew you, already trusted you, saw you as a trusted advisor, so that when you were given this other role, you were able to go to them and say, things are going to change, or at least it's going to be different. I'm going to take the groan out, and you had at least some tacit support from them, or was it different?
I had gained their trust, which is really important. I knew the business inside and out, which again I think is really important to be successful in this role. However, the culture of the company was not exactly one to experiment. They were entrepreneurial, right? But when I first went to my GC and said, here's what I want to do, and I want to use humor and do this and that and mix it up, and we're going to show these funny videos and things like that, he looked at me and he said, well, if that's what you think needs to be done. And it was sort of like a parent saying, all right, if you want to try that, I'm going to be here to catch you when you fall, right? But the first town hall that I did, immediately when I got off stage, the CFO stopped me and said, Kim, that's the best presentation I've ever seen you do. And so I knew right there I was golden. I had nailed it.
So, that's fascinating because you intuitively knew, perhaps you knew from your prior business practice with a law degree about communication and how to reach an audience with even a staid legal topic. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, I do think I followed my intuition because there was no one telling me this is the way it should be done or this is how it was done. And there were a lot of people telling me, you can't use humor, antitrust and bribery. These are serious subjects and it's not going to work. But I believed in myself and I knew I could make it work. And I just felt going the other way was not going to be success. And that, again, that's not the program that I wanted to own. So if you put me in charge of this, then you have to let me show you how, I can make it better.
So how did you learn the nuts and bolts of compliance, or did you have a compliance program in place that you were able to tweak, or how did that part of it work for you?
Yeah, there was a foundation and a program already in place. So I was fortunate in that respect. And I so wish I had a podcast like yours to listen to back in the day. But instead, I was calling everybody and their mother that I knew that handled any bit of compliance and asking them, tell me, what do you do and how do you do it? What works? What fails, right? And learning through those individual phone calls. So it would have been so much easier with your podcast.
Did the GC support your efforts? You mentioned, your first presentation or you wanted to use communication. Did you have a GC who fully supported you? Was there pushback? How did that work for you?
Yeah, well, the GC was the one who had a little doubt at first, but then after he saw it work, he was very supportive. And then we went on to do more things which engaged employees by doing it was actually a calendar with pictures that were made using employees. And when we did that project, that was the first time that I realized, oh my gosh, when you engage the employees in this manner, the employees become ambassadors. for you. And so that was my first hint at pivoting and not being just a corporate program that pushes information out from the ivory tower, right? But being one where you have a grassroots element to it.
Was this company a multinational, and did you have an international component you needed to deal with as well?
We did. Yes, it's a multinational. We did have international, but it wasn't a large part of our business. It was mostly North America. And it wasn't until I joined Whirlpool after that I really, truly got the international experience. And that's part of why I joined.
And could you talk to us a little bit about the differences you found internationally, or did you travel internationally? Did you reach out and establish relationships? What about the international component you learned at Whirlpool?
Yes, I'll warn anybody who wants to have an international job, say goodbye to a normal day, right? The time zones just extend your day beyond what you can ever imagine, right? You're on the phones, in the mornings with India, or China, and in the evenings with China. You think Pacific Coast time frame is bad. When you're doing it internationally, it changes it a lot. And it does require a lot of travel. You have to, again, create the relationships, understand the business in those locations, understand the culture, and build trust. And one of the things that I learned at Whirlpool is that you have to leave room for people to tailor what you're doing to the local culture. In Brazil, they call it tropicalize it, right? So what we learned is rather than building everything down to the utmost detail when we had a toolkit or a plan, we would build it 80% of the way there and then allow the locations to tailor or modify it 20% so that it resonated with them and it felt right for them.
I would assume Whirlpool had a fairly robust supply chain, as well as third-party, if not sales agents, distributors. How was that dealing with that on the international scene?
Yeah, it was quite hard just because of the size of it, right? But fortunately, Whirlpool has a really strong supply chain team. And there are a number of processes where we embedded compliance steps into it. And this, again, is part of going back to, my origins is I am focused operationally. And I want information to be right where someone needs it, when they need it, rather than they have to stop and remember, I have to go off of this process and go on this different website to find something else in somebody else's department. So we like to build things right in.
Kim, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time on this episode, but I hope our listeners will join us again where we actually move to your initial role as a CCO. So I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thanks, Tom.
This is Tom Fox again. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Compliance Life. In the month of December, I'm featuring Kim Yapchai, the Chief Compliance and Chief Sustainability Officer at Tenneco. I hope you'll join us again next week. Also, we have a new podcast on the Compliance Podcast Network, The Wirecard Saga, where I'm taking a deep dive weekly into Wirecard with Kyle Gordon Ryder of Affiliated Monitors. Finally, on 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, this month's topic is training and communications. Check out all these podcasts on the Compliance Podcast Network.